Hey, folks, welcome to According to Sam. This is episode 215. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Happy Memorial Day. I hope you guys had a great holiday weekend and are ready for a jam-packed summer. It's going to be interesting to see what this summer has in store, but we've braved through the winter, and we have a few more weeks of spring left, and then we'll be heading into the summer. It's always kicked off after Memorial Day. People start feeling like that's the beginning of the summer. So hope you guys had a great Memorial Day weekend again, and thank you for tuning in. We are going to pick up where we left off in the last podcast. We've been talking about Professor Allan Lichtman's 13 keys to the White House. And these are 13 different data points, 13 different keys that if 6 of these keys are turned on the party in power, then that means that the party in power will be defeated, and then the challenger will win the election. Doesn't matter who the candidates are, doesn't matter anything about the candidates. This only looks at the party in power, and it is an up and down vote on how well the party in power has done with the power that they've had. And these 13 keys that were created by Professor Allan Lichtman are a better measurement of what you can expect in a presidential election than polls. As a matter of fact, the polls are determined by the issues in these 13 keys. And you can change the polls if you change one of these keys. For example, you have foreign policy, military success, and foreign policy, military failure. Joe Biden doesn't have any foreign policy, military success, but if he gets a foreign policy, military success, what Lichtman's system says is that will have an effect on the polls. If there's a scandal, then the scandal will have an effect on the polls. If there is social unrest will have an effect on the polls. If the economy is good or bad, or if there's a policy change, that will have an effect on the polls. So the polls are only a snapshot. Lichtman's keys are a better predictor because these are the issues that shape the polling. And if you can change one of these keys and turn one of these keys, then you can change the polls. So Lichtman, he admits to being a Democrat. I have the clip here where he says that he's a Democrat. Hold on one moment. Where's that clip? All right, so this is what Lichtman says about his party allegiance. He says he's a Democrat.
I'm a Democrat, and the toughest thing in being a forecaster is to keep your own politics out of it.
So he says that he's a Democrat, and the toughest thing is to keep your own politics out of it. But not only is Lichtman a Democrat, he has TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, and he was going around all through the summer of 2020 or summer of 2019, predicting that Donald Trump would be reelected in 2020 unless Democrats impeach Trump. And he was pleading with Democrats to impeach Trump. You have to move on impeachment. He didn't care what the reason for impeachment was again. He just wanted the public trial in the Senate to create the scandal, to turn the scandal key, and then he could be able to turn that key for Trump. And here's another clip. I played a clip from CNN a few weeks ago or last week of Lichtman warning Democrats, telling them that they need to impeach. This is a different interview that he did on Joe Scarborough's show, Morning Joe. And you can see the date right here. This is May 29th, 2019. So this was just about this time in 2019. As a matter of fact, today is the 26th. So in a few days would be the anniversary of this interview. So the beginning of the summer, Lichtman warning, Trump is going to be elected unless you turn this scandal key and impeach him. Take a listen.
His neck out there.
So what does he say now about President Trump's chances for a second term in 2020? Professor Lichtman joins us now. His 2017 book, The Case for Impeachment.
He wrote a book in 2017. 2017 was Trump's first year in office. He wrote a book for the case for impeaching Donald Trump. So this guy has been talking about impeaching Donald Trump, telling Democrats that they need to impeach him even before the summer of 2019. He wrote a book about it, and he has been advocating for impeaching Trump ever since Trump was sworn in.
It's currently out in paperback, and you say the Democrats have a chance to win, Professor, in 2020. How?
Only if they show boldness, not timidity, and move towards an impeachment inquiry. The Democratic leadership is wrong, as you pointed out, morally and constitutionally by avoiding impeachment. If you have a constitutional crisis, the constitutional remedy is impeachment. But they are also wrong politically. The Democrats seem to be going down the same rat hole as 2016 when they believe the polls and think they're going to cruise to victory. But my prediction system, the keys, looks at the real dynamics that drive elections, and that is the performance of the party holding the White House. And right now, there are only 3 keys against the incumbent Republicans. It takes 6 keys for them to lose.
So we talked about that in the last podcast about the 3 keys that Lichtman had turned on Trump at that time when he was predicting Trump will be reelected unless you move on 3 more of these keys, and he needs 6 total. I only have 3. He had the charisma of the incumbent, no foreign policy and military success, and the party mandate. Those were the only keys that he had turned on Trump at this time. He was warning them and telling them that they need to turn the scandal key and impeach him.
Looks at the real dynamics that drive elections, and that is the performance of the party holding the White House. And right now, there are only 3 keys against the incumbent Republicans. It takes 6 keys for them to lose. That means the scandal key is the critical element of this election, which can be nailed down only by an impeachment process, public hearings, and everyone forgets then a trial in the Senate in which House prosecutors can call witnesses, bring up documents, make opening and closing statements, cross-examine the president's witnesses. That would be a 4th key down, bringing Trump closer to defeat. It could likely trigger other keys as well, like a serious challenge to his renomination or a third party. So without that critical scandal key, it looks like Donald Trump, despite the polls, is likely to be a winner. So the Democrats need to get on the right page politically as well as morally and constitutionally.
Politically, they need to get on the right page politically, is what he's saying, as well as morally and constitutionally. What do you mean, morally and constitutionally? This guy was screaming about impeachment. He wrote a book about impeachment, impeaching Donald Trump, Donald Trump's first year in office. Based on what? What are the reasons for impeaching? It doesn't matter. You just have to turn that scandal key. Like Lichtman says here, the scandal key is his favorite key. Listen.
The White House is untainted by scandal.
My favorite key. As I predicted, Trump was impeached. Plus.
So the scandal key is his favorite key. That's his favorite key, the scandal key. And he, again, going back to Trump's first year in office, wrote a book about impeaching Trump. The year before the interview that you just watched, so this interview that we were just watching on Morning Joe was May 2019. This is a year earlier, September 10th, 2018. This is Lichtman on Morning Joe again, and he's talking about impeachment. This is in 2018.
I want to follow up with the professor about his last book, Impeachment. Professor, you've been right about all of the presidential elections since Taft, or whatever the stat is. It's pretty remarkable. But you also predicted the impeachment of Donald J. Trump. Do you still feel like these months later, it's still moving in that direction?
Absolutely. Everything I wrote about a year and a half ago in my book, The Case for Impeachment, is coming to pass. I wrote about how Donald Trump inveterately lies, chapter on that, chapter on flouting the law, a chapter on war on women, a chapter on the Russia connection, a chapter on his nefarious business activities. It is now all coming to a head. I believe there will be multiple grounds ultimately for impeaching Donald Trump on financial crimes, obstruction of justice, and quite possibly conspiracy to undermine our democracy. But it may well depend upon the Democrats taking over the House in this November, because the Republicans have shown no spine in standing up to this president who threatens our democracy.
So listen to the reasons that he's saying that he's going to be impeached. He's going to be impeached for financial crimes. He wasn't impeached for that. He's going to be impeached for obstruction of justice. He wasn't impeached for that. He was going to be impeached for undermining democracy. He wasn't impeached for that. He was impeached for a phone call that he had with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and asking Ukraine to help in an investigation into Hunter Biden working for a crooked energy company, that he was put on the board of this company as soon as Joe Biden became the liaison for the United States after the coup d'etat. That's why Donald Trump was impeached. He wasn't impeached for any of these reasons. And if you go back to this interview in 2019, when he's predicting Donald Trump will be reelected unless they turn the scandal key and impeach, he's actually challenged, because by this time, again, the Mueller investigation was over. The Mueller investigation had turned up nothing as far as a connection between Donald Trump and Russia. And I want you to listen how he is challenged here on what are you going to impeach him for? And now, I mean, in May of 2019, the Mueller investigation's over. It's turned up nothing. What's the reason, Allan Lichtman? You're here telling Democrats that they have to impeach to turn this scandal key. What is the reason that we're going to impeach him? Take a listen.
So let me go to a Democrat in residence and skeptic, I would guess, of your theory, Steve Ratner. Steve.
Well, look, it seems to me that the Democrats have gone about as far down the hole as you can go in terms of unearthing everything they can unearth about the president. So the question is, one, what would come up at such an impeachment hearing? Two, you'll recall the history of the Bill Clinton impeachment hearing, which followed almost exactly the course that you're outlining. Bill Clinton couldn't run for a third term, but he left office with, I think, close to a 70% approval rating, probably would have won had he run. And indeed, people think Gore lost because he didn't include Bill Clinton in his campaign. So obviously, Trump isn't going to get convicted in the Senate. He's going to become a martyr. Not sure how that helps your case for why an impeachment would prevent his reelection.
So he doesn't really address, I don't have time to allow him to answer this, but the question itself is the point that I want to get at, is that he says there's nothing to impeach Trump for. What do you get? That the Democrats have unearthed everything that there is. They just had a 2-year-long special counsel investigation looking into everything Donald Trump. That's what Mueller had the ability to look into, everything Donald Trump. And they had just closed this 2-year-long special counsel investigation. And this guy's like, what are you going to impeach him for? And then he goes into how it backfired with Bill Clinton, and Lichtman makes some really good points about why it didn't backfire on Bill Clinton. I mean, he picked Al Gore in the 2000 election, and Al Gore lost. And he says, well, Al Gore really won. So if Al Gore really won, then everything that he says here about it not backfiring with Bill Clinton, I mean, it makes no sense. But Lichtman, now, I want you to listen to what Lichtman is saying now about Joe Biden, because Joe Biden is the incumbent now. All of these 13 keys, Lichtman's entire model has nothing to do with Trump because Trump is not the incumbent. The only thing that these keys are looking at is the incumbent party and Joe Biden in his reelection if he becomes the candidate. That's the other thing. People keep saying that Joe Biden's not going to be the candidate, that he's going to be removed at the convention and all. Well, that turns this incumbency key. So, and I'm telling you that Joe Biden's team and the Democrats are looking at this. They are looking at Lichtman's model, and they are, I guarantee you that they are making calculations based on this. He's been too accurate over the last 40 years. They would be stupid not to use Lichtman's keys as a roadmap. Over the last 40 years, no one has had a system. The polls have not been right for the last 40 years. Lichtman's system has. So they're following this system. So they're definitely not going to try to remove Joe Biden because that turns this incumbency key. So look at these other 12 keys. And Lichtman's already said that Joe Biden is not charismatic. No one can say that he's charismatic. So he's going to lose that incumbency charisma key. So that's 2. Party mandate, that's 3. He's already lost party mandate because Democrats lost seats in the House of Representatives in 2022. Third party, Lichtman's not turning. Let's listen to what Lichtman's saying right now, but he's not ready to turn this third party key on Joe Biden yet, which I don't understand. I mean, Kennedy's polling at 15% in Michigan. If that's not enough to turn this third party key, then I don't know what is. But again, that's why I say that Lichtman, that he says that he's a Democrat, and the toughest part of forecasting, the toughest part of his system is keeping his own politics out of it. And what I'm telling you is that I believe that his politics are creeping into this because he's not being honest about his own system. Let's take a listen to what Lichtman is saying about Joe Biden right now.
Fewer than 6, its candidate will win. So where do things stand right now? Let's bring in Allan Lichtman to talk all about it. Thank you so much for being here. Listen, you have not made your official prediction yet. I see the keys. But why do you think that Biden is in the driver's seat now when all these polls seem to say he should be worried?
Remember, all the polls told us that Hillary Clinton would win in 2016. I predicted Trump would win. In 1988, as late as May and June, George H.W. Bush was trailing his opponent, Mike Dukakis, by 18 percentage points. He went on to win handily. Polls are snapshots. They are abused as predictors. The keys are different because they tap into the structure of how elections really work, which is that they are votes up or down on the strength and performance of the White House party. Now, why does Biden have an advantage? Yeah. You know, we hear all this consternation. There should have been a younger candidate. But look at this. Biden wins the incumbency key, which you saw on your chart. He wins the contest key because he's not seriously opposed for the nomination. That means 6 more of my keys would have to fall to predict his defeat. Right now, he only loses 2.
So he only has 2 keys for Joe Biden turned right now. Lichtman. This is what I mean about his politics getting into it. Foreign policy, military failure. Right here. Foreign policy, military failure. Joe Biden doesn't have a foreign policy, military failure, Dr. Lichtman? Are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious, Allan Lichtman? Are you serious? You telling me that Joe Biden doesn't have a foreign policy military failure in his administration? I mean, this guy didn't close Bagram Air Base that was 30 miles outside of Kabul and try to evacuate everybody out of the highly densely populated Kabul. He didn't have people hanging on to these cargo planes and falling off. He didn't lose 13 Americans when they got killed trying to evacuate from the airport there in Afghanistan. What do you mean you haven't turned the foreign policy failure key? That's ridiculous. These people right here, they were hanging onto the plane as the plane took off. Here you can see one of them very faintly fall. Right here, you see this guy falling off the plane. He's hanging onto the plane as the plane's taking off. And Lichtman doesn't have a foreign policy failure turned on Joe Biden? How could you not have the foreign policy failure key turned on Joe Biden? This is what Joe Biden said before the failed evacuation where he got 13 Americans killed and then parlayed it into droning a family of 12 Afghani after he got 13 Americans killed, after he closed Bagram Air Base and tried to evacuate everyone from the densely populated city. This is what this guy said before that happened. Take a listen.
Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an Air Force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
Did you hear what this guy said? This guy said that the Taliban wasn't going to take over. He said that they got all these troops and an Air Force, is what he says, and an Air Force.
Equipped as any army in the world, and an Air Force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
So not only does Joe Biden have a foreign policy failure, sorry to tell you that, Mr. Lichtman, but this key's already turned and there's nothing you can do about it. Just like party mandate, there's nothing you can do about party mandate. Some of these keys, Joe Biden may have some control over. He may be able to turn some of these keys back or flip, but foreign policy failure, he's already got one of those. There's no way to unturn this key. That he's already got foreign policy failure. He's already got party mandate. So just because you're not ready to turn this key on him, I don't know what would he have to do to get a military foreign policy failure for you, Dr. Lichtman. But again, Dr. Lichtman's politics are playing into this. Joe Biden absolutely has a foreign policy failure. Not only does he have a foreign policy failure in his administration, this guy was head of the Foreign Relations Committee as a senator for at least 2 decades during the war on terrorism, definitely throughout the early 2000s. This guy was the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He voted for the Iraq War. He proved the bill out of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for the Iraq War. He sold the Iraq War and got more Democrats to vote for it. He voted for Afghanistan. He voted for all of the funding. This guy not only has a foreign policy military failure in his administration, his whole career. He's got an entire career of foreign policy military failures. So I'm sorry. Mr. Lichtman is not being honest about these keys. And he's not being honest about the economy keys either, but we're not going to talk about the economy keys yet. We'll do a podcast talking about the economy keys because I don't think he's being honest about those. I mean, so far, I got the party mandate key turned on him. I got third party turned on him. Social unrest, we're getting ready to talk about. I'm going to tell you about the scandal key too, because the scandal key, I was looking at this list of these keys, and I was thinking about the issues in this election. I was like, the border is one of the top 2 issues. Economy and the border is a top. Where would the border fit in to Allan Lichtman's keys? Well, it's not party mandate. It's not contest. It's not incumbency. The border has nothing to do with third party. I mean, you can make a case that the border has something to do with the economy, but not really. Policy change, that's not really a border issue. Social unrest, I guess you can make a case for the border issue being a little bit of social unrest, has nothing to do with the challenger's charisma, has nothing to do with incumbency, foreign policy, military success, foreign policy, military failure. That doesn't really fit the border. But this one right here, the border is a scandal. The border is a scandal, people. And just like Lichtman was warning Democrats that you need to impeach Donald Trump or he's going to be reelected in the summer of 2019, the House of Representatives has already impeached Joe Biden's head of Homeland Security, Mayorkas. They impeached him. And then they sent the articles of impeachment to the Senate so the Senate could have a trial. So this scandal key would be turned on Joe Biden's administration because the head of Homeland Security would be in the middle of an impeachment trial in the Senate right now. But the Senate, on party lines, all Democrats voted to kill the articles of impeachment in the Senate so they wouldn't even have a trial. But it doesn't matter. That scandal, the scandal key is still turned on Joe Biden because of the border. There's the border and the amount of migrants in this country under Joe Biden's watch is a scandal. It's a huge scandal. Now, what they're trying to do, they're trying to pass this bill in the Senate so they can, say that the Republicans aren't voting for our bill. So they're going to try to put this scandal on the Republicans. But that's not how Lichtman's system works. The Lichtman system looks only at the incumbent and how the scandal is going to hurt the incumbent. And if anybody is going to pay for the scandal at the border, it doesn't matter what they try and what bills they try to pass now. If anybody's going to pay for that scandal, it's going to be the incumbency party. Just like the third party, everybody is speculating, who's Kennedy going to hurt more? Is Kennedy going to hurt Donald Trump more or going to hurt Biden more? Well, according to Lichtman's system, that answers, that question's already been answered. Kennedy's going to hurt Joe Biden, just like his uncle did in 1980 when he ran against Jimmy Carter. If you ask Jimmy Carter, not now because Jimmy Carter is on his way out of here, but if you would have asked Jimmy Carter, 10, 20 years ago, why did you lose in 1980 out of everything that Jimmy Carter was dealing with? The hostages in Iran, the inflation, the gas prices, everything that Jimmy Carter was dealing with in that election, he will tell you that the thing that hurt him the most was Ted Kennedy primarying him and running against him in that election, that third party run. And that's because Jimmy Carter was the incumbent in 1980 and Ted Kennedy being in his party primarying him from within the party actually turned two of these keys. It turned the contest key and then it turned the third party key. But Carter will tell you that the reason that he lost that election is because of Ted Kennedy's run. So who does the third party hurt more in this election? People speculating it hurts Trump more. They're wrong. According to Lichtman's system, which has been accurate for the last 4 decades, the third party candidate Kennedy hurts Biden, just like the scandal key hurts Biden. All right, so Biden already has a foreign policy failure. Even though Lichtman's not turning this key for him, Afghanistan was a foreign policy failure for Joe Biden. And there is a potential for Joe Biden to have more foreign policy military failures, depending on what happens in Israel and also in Ukraine. Lichtman says that. Take a listen.
Have to fall to predict his defeat. Right now, he only loses 2. Party mandate based on House elections in 2022 and incumbent charisma because he's no Franklin Roosevelt. So 4 more keys would have to fall. And there are 4 shaky keys that I haven't called yet. And this is what your viewers should keep your eye on. Forget the pundits, forget the polls. Third party. Will RFK Jr. emerge as we get closer as a truly significant third-party candidate.
He's already polling at 15% in Michigan, buddy.
Social unrest, which we, now see emerging at campuses. Will that be sustained? We don't know. And of course, foreign failure and success.
He's already got a failure, buddy. He's already got a failure.
Jump on what's going to happen in the Middle East and in Ukraine. All four would have to go against Biden to predict his defeat.
So he's already got a foreign policy failure. I'm sorry that you don't see Afghanistan as a failure because your politics is getting in the way, but he's already got a failure. Now, foreign policy, military success, and social unrest. So these are tied together. So the social unrest key that is threatening Joe Biden deals with foreign policy. The reason that there's social unrest in 2024 and potential social unrest this summer that threatens Joe Biden's reelection, it deals with foreign policy, and military policy. And so if I'm looking at this, if I'm Joe Biden and I'm trying to make a calculation, I'm looking at Joe Biden's system, at Lichtman's system here, and I'm saying that if I can change this key, if I can turn this key, military success, and I could fix the issue in Israel, then I automatically flip this key in my favor. Because if I fix what's going on in the Middle East with Israel and Gaza, and I get some type of peace agreement, some type of treaty, and I can fix that issue, then I can get a military success, but that would also cool down the social unrest because these are connected. So we're going to talk a lot about social unrest and the social unrest key in the remainder of this podcast. Also in the next podcast, I want to focus on how Joe Biden is threatened by the social unrest key this year, but I want to also focus on how they used the social unrest key to turn it on Trump in 2020 using the George Floyd BLM protest. So in Israel right now, there was a huge attack just yesterday. Israel is moving into Rafah, and they are increasing their attack there on Rafah. And I told you that Joe Biden secretly, that they are supporting Israel's move into Rafah because they want Israel to go in and finish this fast, get rid of Hamas as fast as possible. So then after they do that, then Joe Biden can move in with this peace agreement and peace deal. And again, this is all calculated based on Lichtman's keys. But this attack yesterday in Rafah, hitting a refugee camp, killing like 35, 40 civilians. And they say, we got 2 members of Hamas, but we killed, 35, 40 civilians. They've already issued an arrest warrant. The ICC, International Criminal Court, has issued an arrest warrant on Benjamin Netanyahu this week. Israel is becoming more and more isolated. But again, Biden needs them to go in and they need them to finish this fast. And but this is what happened last night in Rafah. And it's not working out for Biden. This is going to only increase when you see images like what I'm getting ready to show you, that this is only going to increase the social unrest and the protests, not only in the United States, worldwide.
The Israeli airstrikes hit a small area of prefabricated huts surrounded by desert just after evening prayers last night. A Hamas official confirmed that 2 senior commanders targeted by Israel were killed. But there's no doubt that Palestinian civilians were also among the dead and injured. Israel claims it used precise munitions and that its intelligence assessment prior to this strike was that what it called uninvolved civilians would not be hurt. but dozens were taken to field hospitals, including these children, prompting expressions of outrage from some European leaders. Just days after the UN's top court ordered Israel to stop the violence.
What kind of conscience and religion does this? What kind of humanity? Where is the world? Where is the Islamic nation?
All right, so the social unrest is only going to increase. It's not going to end, but that's what Joe Biden needs. He needs the social unrest to end. So he needs a foreign policy success. And what Joe Biden is trying to do now is negotiate a foreign policy success that will end the conflict between Israel and Gaza and create a Palestinian state. This is Fareed Zakaria explaining it. Take a listen.
Here's my take. The situation in Israel looks grim. The war in Gaza drags on with more Palestinian casualties. Opposition to Israel builds into.
So this monologue that Fareed Zakaria is doing in this video was yesterday morning, and the video that I just showed you of the bombing there in Rafah, killing and wounding civilians, was last night. So this monologue from Fareed Zakaria is before the most recent bombing. So just take that into consideration.
Here's my take. The situation in Israel looks grim. The war in Gaza drags on with more Palestinian casualties. Opposition to Israel builds internationally. If and when Israel decides it has degraded Hamas enough to stop, no Palestinian or Arab force is likely to be willing to take over Gaza, so Israel will stay on as the occupying force. New insurgencies will probably pop up, and Gaza will remain a wasteland populated by 2.2 million Palestinians living lives of desperation. Meanwhile, conditions in the West Bank are deteriorating rapidly. If the Palestinian Authority were to collapse, Israel would have two volatile arenas and around 5 million Palestinians to police night and day indefinitely. There is a way out. In fact, the Biden administration has been working to find a way to turn the crisis into an opportunity. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has been doggedly pursuing an effort to get Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel in return for what Saudi Arabia's foreign minister has described as a credible and irreversible path to a Palestinian state.
So CIA Director Burns is over there again right now. He was over there just a few weeks ago. Jake Sullivan's over there, like Fareed says. They're over there trying to negotiate this agreement with Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel. And they believe that Saudi Arabia will help to relocate some of these refugees and to help also rebuild and manage Gaza so Israel can have a hands-off, and they don't have to be policing them and controlling them. That Saudi Arabia and other Arab nations will move in if they can get this deal worked out, is what Joe Biden is trying to do. Again, this is calculated. If Joe Biden can get this foreign policy military success, if he can get Saudi Arabia and Israel to normalize their relations and get all of this worked out, then he gets this key turned. He gets the foreign policy military success key turned in his favor. And then it also ends the social unrest. If he can't do that, then he doesn't get this key turned on him. And then he also, the social unrest will continue. So this is the calculation that the Biden team is making.
An effort to get Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel in return for what Saudi Arabia's foreign minister has described as a credible and irreversible path to a Palestinian state. Now, the plan might sound like a pie in the sky.
Totally.
But in fact, official American and Saudi sources have publicly said that they are close to a deal.
Sure they are.
The parts that involve Washington and Riyadh have been mostly worked out by Sullivan and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. It involves major American commitments, a formal security guarantee from the U.S. to Saudi Arabia, as well as technology transfers to enable a civilian nuclear program. But the final element, a path to a Palestinian state, is critical. The Saudis have not demanded that a Palestinian state be established right away, merely that there is a solid road to it. That will mean a timetable for Israel and a series of conditions for the Palestinians, each having to meet its obligations. Such a deal could also open up key elements to stabilizing the situation in Gaza: Palestinian participation and Arab involvement in post-war security, reconstruction funds, and European support, among other things. It would all realize Israel's greatest hope and dream: to be integrated into the region economically and politically. After all, once Saudi Arabia, the custodian of Islam's two holiest sites and the funder of many Arab governments, has joined hands with Israel, there would be strong reasons for other Arab and Islamic countries to follow. The main obstacle right now is Israel's opposition to any such concessions. That's understandable. Israelis are still traumatized by the brutal October 7th terrorist attack. They believe that any talk of a Palestinian state rewards terrorism, and they cannot trust that a Palestinian state would ever be a peaceful neighbor.
So you understand? So the very first thing, before Biden can get any of this worked out, first thing he has to do is get rid of Hamas. That's why he's telling Israel privately that we need you to go in and we need you to get rid of Hamas. Hamas has to go before any of this works. None of this works out. This peace agreement and normalizing relationships between Saudi Arabia and Israel, none of that works unless Israel is able to get rid of Hamas. Because if Hamas doesn't agree to the plan, Hamas will put a monkey wrench in the plan. And we've seen this a million times before. So if they don't get any agreement from Hamas, all parties have to agree. So this is when he says that this is pie in the sky, it's absolutely pie in the sky. And it's already been tried. It's already been tried, people. Jack Philby, if you don't know who Jack Philby was, but he's a MI6 officer who became an advisor to the founder of Saudi Arabia, MBS's grandfather. And they tried, and Jack Philby in the 1930s had what was called the Philby Plan that he was trying to work out with the Zionist nation and with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and it fell through. But I want you to listen to what Philby wrote. It says, after Ibn Saud, this is the founder of Saudi Arabia, MBS's father or grandfather, and MBS is who Sullivan is negotiating with right now. This is MBS. This is MBS right here. Mohammed bin Salman. His grandfather, who founded Saudi Arabia, Ibn Saud, and Philby was his advisor. And then it says, after Ibn Saud died in 1953, Philby openly criticized the new king of Saudi Arabia by saying the royal family has picked up the morals of the West. Philby, who was an MI6 officer, actually had converted to Islam, and he was a very trusted advisor to the king of Saudi Arabia. He says they picked up their morals in the gutters of the West, and he was exiled to Lebanon by the new king of Saudi Arabia. And there, he wrote a lot. He wrote journals, he wrote a book, but this is a quote from one of, I think from his journals. And he says, this is Jack Philby, MI6 officer who tried to negotiate a peace deal back in the 1930s between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And this is very important because this is the way that I told you that the issue with Israel is should Israel exist or not? That's the heart of the issue, is that the people in the Middle East, the Arabs in the Middle East that don't want Israel, they do not want Israel to exist at all. And Philby says here why they are against the existence of the Israeli state. He says the true basis of Arab hostility to Jewish immigration into Palestine is xenophobia. And instinctive perception that the vast majority of Central and Eastern European Jews seeking admission are not Semites at all. Whatever political repercussions of their settlement may be, the Advent is regarded as a menace to the Semitic culture of Arabia. The European Jew of today, with his secular outlook, is regarded as an unwelcome intruder within the gates of Arabia. So, unless you're going to change this, MBS and Sullivan, unless you're going to change people's perception about European Jews in that they see as invaders in the Middle East, unless you're going to change, you're never going to end this conflict. And again, this is absolute pie in the sky, but this is the calculated measure that Joe Biden is making, both to end the conflict in the Middle East and to end the social unrest so this guy can win re-election. There's no chance this works, okay? No chance.
It involves major American commitments, a formal security guarantee from the U.S. to Saudi Arabia, as well as technology transfers to enable a civilian nuclear program. But the final element, a path to a Palestinian state, is critical. The Saudis have not demanded that a Palestinian state be established right away, merely that there is a solid road to it. That will mean a timetable for Israel and a series of conditions for the Palestinians, each having to meet its obligations. Such a deal could also open up key elements to stabilizing the situation in Gaza: Palestinian participation and Arab involvement in post-war security, reconstruction funds, and European support, among other things. It would all realize Israel's greatest hope and dream: to be integrated into the region economically and politically. After all, once Saudi Arabia, the custodian of Islam's two holiest sites and the funder of many Arab governments, has joined hands with Israel, there would be strong reasons for other Arab and Islamic countries to follow. The main obstacle right now is Israel's opposition to any such concessions. That's understandable. Israelis are still traumatized by the brutal October 7th terrorist attack. They believe that any talk of a Palestinian state rewards terrorism, and they cannot trust that a Palestinian state would ever be a peaceful neighbor. These are all valid concerns. But it's also worth remembering that efforts to normalize relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia have been going on for at least 5 years.
Longer than that, buddy.
Those efforts because of October 7th.
Longer than that. Really going back to the 1930s when Jack Philby was trying to negotiate this deal with the King of Saudi Arabia.
5 years. To derail those efforts because of October 7th would really be to reward terrorism. Israelis need to be reminded that they have an existential problem. As an Israeli prime minister once said, the truth is that in the area of our homeland now lives a large population of Palestinians. We do not want to rule over them. We do not want to run their lives. We do not want to force our flag and our culture on them. In my vision of peace, there are two free peoples living side by side in this small land with good neighborly relations and mutual respect, each with its flag, anthem, and government, with neither one threatening its neighbor's security and existence. He added, a strong Palestinian government will strengthen peace. The man who spoke those words was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in his Bar Ilan speech in 2009. In it, he outlined conditions for that Palestinian state, demilitarized, with a prohibition against making military treaties with foreign powers.
Good luck.
But he is on the record speaking in favor of a Palestinian state. President Biden should now lay out his vision for this future. Explain that the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have come to an agreement and that all that remains is for Israel to join in the discussion and reach a comprehensive pact. He should remind Bibi Netanyahu of the final lines of his Bar Ilan speech, invoking the prophet Isaiah. Let us know war no more. Let us know peace.
Yeah, that's only part of what Isaiah said. And let me read a little bit of the prophet Zechariah. And the prophet Zechariah says, the burden of the word of the Lord of Israel, saith the Lord stretches out the heavens and layeth the foundations of the earth and formeth the spirit within the man. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people around about. when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day, I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone to all people. All that burden themselves with Jerusalem, all that burden themselves with it shall be cut into pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. That's what Zechariah says. He says that I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone to all people, and all that burden themselves with it shall be cut into pieces. And that's what Biden is doing. Biden is burdening himself with Jerusalem and with the Israeli conflict because he needs to get a foreign policy success and he needs to get a social unrest key turned, because if the social unrest continues through the summer, which I believe that it will, on through the convention and in Illinois and into the fall, I believe I don't think the social unrest is going anywhere. But I mean, it's interesting that the social unrest key has the potential of being used in 2 elections in a row. If you look back in the history of American elections, it's the social unrest key is I would say rare. You don't get to turn this key in very many elections, and we have 2 consecutive elections where the social unrest key is being used in a presidential election. It was definitely used in 2020, and it has the potential, a high potential of still being a relevant key in the 2024 election. But in the 2020 election, I wanted to get more into that in this podcast. We'll pick that up in the next podcast. But in the 2020 election, Democrats, understanding Lichtman's system here and the 13 keys that they needed to turn on Trump. We talked last week about how COVID was used to turn the economy key. The scandal key was turned with the impeachment, but the social unrest key was turned with the death of George Floyd and the protests that ensued nationwide for months, all the way up into the election in November. These protests were going on, and it caused major social unrest. And this key was turned on Donald Trump, and Donald Trump. Lichtman predicted Donald Trump's loss because of the social unrest key. And I told you how George Floyd's the anniversary, 4-year anniversary of George Floyd's death was on Saturday. You had tons of messages from Joe Biden. Here's Joe Biden's message for George Floyd. Today we remember George Floyd Jr., October 14th, 1973 to May 25th, 2020. And then Joe Biden's tweet is, George Floyd should be alive. He deserves so much more. Today, I join on all those who loved him and all those touched by the civil rights movement. He inspired in remembering the tragedy and injustice of his death. He changed the world. This is Joe Biden. So they're still using George Floyd and trying to turn that key on Donald Trump, but you're the incumbent, buddy. If you is turned the social unrest key now, and that's what he says. Now let's act in his memory. Well, if people act this summer in George Floyd's memory, that hurts you, not Trump, because Trump's not the incumbent. Here is Vice President Kamala Harris. George Floyd deserved to be safe. George Floyd should be alive today. Today we remember George Floyd. Same post as her boss, Amy Klobuchar, who's the senator of Minnesota, where George Floyd, lost his life there in Minneapolis. It was 4 years ago today that George Floyd was murdered. No, he OD'd on fentanyl. We must always remember him and honor his memory in conducting and continuing the fight against racism and injustice. Didn't have anything. The cop that arrested him was black. Have anything to do with racism, Amy Klobuchar? It's ridiculous. So they're still using this, and they used it. They used it in 2024 to turn that social unrest key. They used it. This is the mayor of Minneapolis he's in front of George Floyd's gold casket. Remember, they got this guy a solid gold casket. Gold casket, and this is the mayor of Minneapolis faking crying with his mask on, kneeling down in front of George Floyd's gold casket. They sold this thing to turn the key, the social unrest key, for Trump in 2020. We're going to talk more about this in the next podcast. I know I told you that we would talk about it in this podcast, but I wanted to get to it, and we will get to it in the next podcast. But for the remainder, I have a few more minutes left in this podcast. Let's watch a little bit of the video of the beginning of the video, body cam video of George Floyd being arrested, or them attempting to arrest him after he went into this bodega and passed a fake bill. Then they called the police, and then the police went to the car and to get him out of the car. And this is all of the video that they hid from everyone. That if they would have shown this video to the public immediately, you wouldn't have had the social unrest all through 2020. You wouldn't have had all of the rioting and looting and all that stuff if they would have allowed the people to see this context. But they hid this from the people so they could turn the social unrest key on Donald Trump. Let's watch a little bit of this, and then I'll play us out.
You see your hands.
Damn, man.
Stay in the car. Let me see your other hand.
I'm sorry.
Let me see your other hand.
Please, Miss Officer.
Both hands.
Do nothing.
Put your fucking hands up right now. Let me see your other hand.
All right. What I do though? What do we do?
Put your hand up there. Put your fucking hand up there. Jesus Christ. Keep your fucking hands on the wheel. Keep your fucking hands on the wheel.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Officer.
Who else is in the car?
I got shot. That's my friend.
It's funny because Biden's all, George Floyd should be alive. Yeah, he would be alive if he complied, if he wouldn't have passed a fake bill.
God dang, man. Man, I got shot the same way, Mr. Officer, before.
Okay, well, when I say let me see your hands, you put your fucking hands up.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Officer.
You got them?
Man, dang, man.
Put your hands on top of your head.
Man, Mr. Officer. Last time I got shot like that, Mr. Officer.
Hands on top of your head. Hands on top of your head. Step out of the vehicle and step away from me, all right? Step out and face away. Step out and face away.
Okay, Mr. Officer, please don't shoot me. Please, man.
I'm not going to shoot you. Step out and face away.
I'm going to get out of eye, man. Please don't shoot me, man.
I'm not shooting you, man.
Please, man. I just lost my mom, man.
He's got drugs in his mouth. You can see it right here. That's the pill. You can see this pill right there in his mouth.
No. Step out and face away.
So sorry.
Step out and face away.
Please don't shoot me, Mr. Officer. Please. Don't shoot me, man.
Step out and face away.
Can you not shoot me, man?
I'm not shooting you. Step out and face away.
Okay. Please, man. Please.
8 times. He asked him to step out of the car 8 times and to show his hands 8 times.
I didn't know, man.
Get out of the car.
I didn't know, Mr. Officer. I didn't know.
His friend says, stop resisting. This is the friend that was in the car with him. Stop resisting. So she even does these resisting. He hid all this from you.
Stop moving. I'm not doing nothing. Put your hands behind your back then.
You won't allow him to put the handcuffs on him.
Hey, you come back. Stay in the car. I'm sorry, I get on my knees for that. Stop resisting, man.
Yes, you are.
This is racism. This is Amy Klobuchar says this is racism.
Please, man.
Stand up for me. Stand up.
I want to go back, man.
This is racism, according to Amy Klobuchar.
I ain't gonna do that. That's wrong, man.
Come on, walk with me.
Walk
with me. Walk with me.
My thing, man.
All right, let's watch a little bit of them trying to get him in the car.
I'm not that kind of guy.
Sit still.
I'm not that kind of guy.
I'm not that kind of guy. Please. I'm not that kind of guy, Mr. Officer. Please. God.
That's his pipe.
Man, don't leave me by myself, man. Please. I'm just claustrophobic. That's it.
Still going in the car. Anything sharp on you?
I won't do nothing to hurt y'all.
Do you have anything sharp on you?
Sir.
Not even looking.
I mean, these cops are doing nothing wrong. They're doing their job. They're doing their job. They're just trying to do their job.
I'm claustrophobic for real.
I mean, there's a lot of bad cops. There's a lot. You're not going to get me here to say that there's not bad cops. There's a lot of bad cops. A lot of cops that do a lot of things wrong. These guys are not doing anything wrong. As a matter of fact, they're being very respectful of George Floyd the entire time. Amy Klobuchar says this is racism, though.
Man, don't leave me by myself, man. Please. I'm just claustrophobic. That's it.
Still going in the car. Anything sharp on you?
I won't do nothing to hurt y'all.
Do you have anything sharp on you?
Sir.
Not even like a comb or nothing?
I don't have nothing. Why y'all doing me like that? Mr. Officer, please, crack it window for me and stuff, man.
Stand up straight.
I'm claustrophobic for real, Mr. Officer.
You got him?
Could you please crack it for me, please?
Yes, I'll
Run my
crack
hand.
it.
Stay with me, man.
I will.
Please stay with me, man. Thank you. God, man. I didn't know all this was gonna happen, man. Please, man. I just want my hands free. I don't gonna do nothing, y'all, man. Nothing.
Okay, you get that inside in
And
the
I
pocket real
understand.
quick on your side?
Hey,
I'm listening.
And I understand that people do stuff, and y'all don't know me.
Let's go. Take a seat.
Okay.
Why are you having trouble walking?
Because my hands
roll the
are
windows
hurt.
down,
We won't
okay?
please, man.
He tells him,
I'm going in.
I'll put the windows down. I'll put the if the cops are being if they're racist, why would he say I'll put the windows down? I'll make sure that you're comfortable back there. Why does he care about his comfort if these are racist?
Man, please don't do
Take a seat.
I'm going in. I'm going
No,
in.
you're not.
I gotta go in.
Take a seat. Grab a seat, man.
Why y'all don't believe me, Mr. Officer?
Take a seat.
I'm not that kind of guy.
I'm not that kind of
I'm not
guy.
that kind of guy,
Yeah, you
man.
are, buddy.
Take a seat.
I'm a diet.
Take a
I'm a
seat.
diet, man.
Yeah, you're that kind of guy.
And I just had COVID, man. I don't want to go back to that.
I just had COVID.
Take a seat. I'll roll the windows
No.
down. Hey, listen.
Dang, man.
Listen.
I'm not that kind of guy.
I'll roll the windows down
Please,
and you
man.
point the legs in, all right? I'll
Y'all
put the air on.
God, look at that.
You're not even listening.
Look at it. Look at it.
We can fix it, but not while you're standing out
Okay,
here.
man. God, y'all do me bad, man. Man, I don't want to try to win. I don't want to try to win. I don't want to win. I'm claustrophobic.
You ain't gonna win.
I'm claustrophobic.
I don't want to do
I'm
that.
claustrophobic. Oh, man. Anyway, all right. So that's enough of that. We'll get back into the social unrest key. We're going to talk about Black Lives Matter. We're going to talk about George Floyd. We're going to talk about what was going on around this time in 2020 and what led to Democrats being able to turn the social unrest key on Donald Trump. I'll see you guys on Friday. Thank you so much for listening and have a great week.